Sunshine. Welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 255. And today's date is January 4th, 2014. And the title of this episode is The Current Economic Collapse News Brief for this Saturday. Now, I discussed in my earlier reports that the U.S. car manufacturers were showing a decline in sales. And we're seeing this throughout Europe also. Now, in Germany, car sales have dropped around 4.2%. And statistics released by Germany's Federal Motor Transport Authority on Friday said that new car registrations are down by 4.2%. And we can see that this is a snowball effect. It is only going to get worse. We're going to see a decline in retail sales. We're going to see a decline in manufacturing. We're going to see a decline in automobile sales, because what is happening right now is that we have double-digit unemployment, a huge amount of debt, austerity happening in many of the countries in Europe, and this is all taking its toll. It cannot be sustained. Here in the U.S., they are continually pumping money into the banks, which are then taking that money, and it is being put into the stock market to boost the market up to all-time new highs. And they do this because they are transferring the wealth from the poor, middle class, and wealthy, not the elite wealthy, the wealthy, and trying to get all of this transferred over to the elite. And this is what they are doing at this time. It was done during 2007, 2008. Everyone was into real estate. Everyone was into, and what happened? It completely collapsed. Everyone was pumping money into the stock market. The wealthy people left the market because they have insider information. The retail investors were left, and guess what? It came crashing down. The same thing happened in 1929. The retail investors were all into the market because it was reaching new highs, and then it was just let go, and the entire market collapsed. But those people were already out of the market at that time. Okay, now, billionaires are starting to dump their stocks. Now, we've seen this in the real estate market also. The cash buyers are trying to get out of real estate. The big mortgage companies and their departments are laying off people and shrinking them because they realize that this is a bubble and it is time to get out. We are seeing Warren Buffett. We are seeing John Paulson. We are seeing George Soros. They are starting to unload billions of stock right now, and they're trying to get the retail stock investors into the market. This is the end play that usually happens when the market is about to come down. But what are all these people purchasing? They are purchasing hard assets, not just gold and silver, which they're really they're buying rail lines, they're buying oil companies, they're buying things that are real hard assets. And this is what they're doing. They're taking all the profits that they earned in the stock market and transferring it all to hard assets. Now, in the Obamacare arena here, what is happening is that instead of uninsured people, we are now becoming a nation of underinsured if you take a plan from Obamacare, because we have to remember that these insurance policies are real. They're not really good insurance policies. And what I mean by this is that they have high deductibles. They have deductibles of $4,000, $5,000, $7,000. The premiums are very high. And what this means is when you go to use it, and let's say you're going to a doctor, you have to pay out of pocket first because you have to reach that deductible. And let's say the office visit is $200, $300. You pay $200 to $300. You're still paying your monthly premium for the insurance policy, but the insurance companies do not have to kick in anything. So these people are really underinsured now. It's actually worse than it was before, because now they have to lay out $5,000 to $7,000 first, pay the higher premium before insurance takes effect. And the only way the insurance is going to take effect is if you have some type of catastrophic illness and you are put into a hospital, and then of course the hospital will bill you for $7,000 and they will take care of the rest. But otherwise, your everyday visit to the doctor for the flu or the cold or broken bone or something like that, you will be paying out of pocket first. So people who were fully insured before are now becoming underinsured, almost like the people who were employed full time are underemployed today. Now, the Federal Reserve has its own police department. The U.S. Federal Reserve Police is the law enforcement arm of the Federal Reserve System. The central banking system of the United States. Officers are certified to carry a variety of weapons, depending on their assignment, including semi-automatic pistols, assault rifles, submachine guns, shotguns, less lethal weapons, pepper spray, batons, and other standard police equipment. And in 2010, President Barack Obama signed into law SB 1132, the Law Enforcement Officers Safety Improvements Act, which states that law enforcement officers of the Federal Reserve, and of course if you read the title, you think it has to do with all the law officers throughout the countries, but this is specific to the Federal Reserve, are qualified law enforcement officers, and thus are authorized to carry a firearm off duty. Now, right now, the Federal Reserve, the central bankers, have about 1,000 sworn members of the Fed police force, and now they are looking to beef this up. They want a lot more officers employed. What are they worried about? Well, I'm going to tell you. They're worried about the American people, because when this system collapses, they're afraid of the people revolting against the bankers. And the Fed is part of the central banking system. Now, the U.S. fears that Taipei is growing closer to Beijing. U.S. analysts fear that this year could be a dangerous one, with Taiwan growing diplomatically closer to Beijing and more distant from Washington. China is trying to persuade Taipei and other regional capitals that Washington's assistance in the case of a crisis will neither be reliable nor forthcoming. And of course, the United States is pushing for more inclusion of the smaller nations into the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and they're trying to show that they're going to be there in a time of crisis. They're trying to implement this trade agreement, and we all know what this trade agreement really means. And Taiwan and other allies are questioning the U.S. commitment, and Taipei has become significantly closer to Beijing in recent years because they see the U.S. as unreliable, and this is happening to a lot of the small Asian Pacific countries in the area. They are turning toward Beijing, away from the United States, because what do they see? They see the U.S. dollar collapsing. They see what is happening here in the United States, and all the private Western central bank countries, the Eurozone, Germany, the UK, Australia, Canada, and they are worried. And they see China out there making deals with Australia, making deals with England, making deals with Russia, making deals with North Korea, making deals with Iran, Syria, making deals with Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and they see what is happening, and they're deciding at this point which side they want to be on. Do they want to be on the side where the dollar is collapsing, or do they want to be on the side where the yuan is going to be the next reserve currency of the world? And this is what is happening at this time, and this is why Washington is very nervous of what is happening in the Pacific region, because you have to remember, the U.S. is right now surrounding China. They have bases around there. They're upgrading their base in Japan, bringing in more sophisticated weapons. They have a missile base on Guam, the missile shield in Europe, where Russia is countering that missile shield with their own missile shield. There's a race to Antarctica, and we see what is happening in Central Africa at this time. China is pumping in billions of dollars into the infrastructure, and the U.S., France and the NATO countries are down there combating this because everyone is fighting for the natural resources at this time. Now, there was a glitch in PNC Bank, and of course, we're seeing many of these glitches in the NASDAQ, in the Chicago Mercantile, which they came out later and said it was actually a cyber attack. And we're seeing this all over the place. I mean, we see Adobe getting hit. We're seeing Target get hit. We're seeing all of this happening right now because they're building this up. Because what's eventually going to happen is there going to be a cyber attack on the financial institutions, on the power infrastructure, and Janet Napolitano, as we know, already confirmed this for us. And what happened in PNC Bank is that if you check your bank account, you saw strange withdrawals. You saw, like it said, miscellaneous withdrawals. Or you paid your mortgage twice, and they are looking into what caused this glitch, and they're trying to figure it out. Of course, they're saying it's a processing error, and this is not normal. And of course, they're going to reimburse all those miscellaneous withdrawals. But people saw their accounts lose money. This is in preparation for the cyber attack. They are getting prepared. They have their malware, viruses, the software that they wrote into the systems. This is why all of a sudden we saw NASDAQ have glitches. This is why we saw the stock exchange have glitches. This is why we're seeing the glitches in Amazon, Netflix, Netvine, because it is spreading, and we understand the NSA has backdoors into every single thing, and they understand that the collapse is coming, and we're seeing different anomalies happen all over in the computer systems. Now, federal authorities were out there, and they're saying from September 11, 2001, through the end of August 2013, they say they have discovered around 71 plots that were planned to take place either on American or foreign soil, and 5 of those 71 actually occurred. And what they're saying here is FBI and military has destroyed a lot of the capabilities of international terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda to launch broad-scale attacks such as 9/11. And what they are worried about, and I've been saying this all along, that terrorists have the only thing left is to create smaller attacks that can be undertaken by people in the U.S. And they've been building this up all along. They've been saying that people can be radicalized, people that are upset with the government are terrorists, and they are building these cases up right now. And we see a lot of terrorist reports in the news lately, especially from representatives on both sides, Democrat, Republican, saying that the United States is not safe, that they're worried about lone wolf terrorist attacks. And 7 of the 71 plots on the list are tagged as being those of lone wolf terrorists. And you can see how they're playing this up. They're continually building this. And regardless what officials say, the internet and social media have played a role in people becoming familiar with terrorist networks and ideals and means to learn about tactics. Those resources have helped spread the increase in homegrown terrorists who often don't have access to terrorist training camps and other outside assistance. And this goes on to say the ability to communicate, to search the internet helps support the cause. And if I'm a homegrown terrorist and decide to take out some revenge on the United States, it's much easier to do that today under the radar. And they are very worried about these lone wolf attacks, which I've described many times on these reports. And the FBI is out there saying, and this is from FBI agent Lanza, there are 320 million people in the U.S., so you can fly under the radar very easily to carry out these lone wolf attacks. And what this makes me lean towards is the event that is coming. Lately, they've been building and building and building about terrorist attacks, about lone wolves. They've been going on with this for quite a while. We understand that the Fed is tapering this month of January, and there's also the Fed out there saying, and I've seen reports of Feds saying that them tapering at this time might hurt the world economy. They're already backpedaling now, and they're saying that they don't even understand how QE actually made all of these numbers and the economy better, because it makes no sense. Well, of course it doesn't, because everything is manipulated, and they're not in the inside knowledge, and it makes no sense to them, and it makes no sense to the rest of the world. When you when you give the money to the banks and they pump it into the stock markets, and the Fed purchases all the toxic real estate from the banks, it doesn't help the economy at all. So what they needed to do to prove that this was actually helping was to manipulate the numbers. And this is why they continually change all the calculations for unemployment, GDP, inflation. And this is the only way they can control what is happening. And of course, they also need to use the propaganda to make everyone believe that there is a recovery. That's why during the summer and all throughout this year, we had the European leaders, the president of France, Spain, here in the United States, all telling everyone that things are recovering. So what they had to do here in the United States is beef up the stock market to all-time new highs, and that included the Dow, the Nasdaq, and the S&P. Show the unemployment has come down from 7.8% or down to 7.3, down to 7%, to prove that the economy is getting better. And they had a problem with GDP, so what they had to do is they had to go back to 1929, include research and development and other things, and recalculate it all the way forward to make people believe that things are getting better. And to help the GDP numbers and the manufacturing numbers, they had to channel stuff and pump in manufactured products into retail stores and into the dealerships to make everyone believe that things are getting better. And what's happening now is we're coming to the end game. The unemployment is reaching the point where the Fed would have to do a full-on taper because, of course, it's number-based. And right now we have 1.3 million falling off of unemployment because of the unemployment benefits have stopped. The extension of unemployment has stopped. And, of course, the Obama and the Senate and Congress are in there, and they're going to talk about this on Monday to see if they can get that reinstated, because that would be a huge drop in unemployment. It would come down from 7 all the way to like 6.3, 6.2%. That would mean the Fed would have to taper full on, and that would just decimate the economy. So they're most likely going to slow this down a little bit so they can bring it from 7 to 6.8, a little bit slower, and then finally have the event to blame the entire collapse on another country, so they're not blamed. And we have to remember, the Fed right now is building up their police force to protect the Federal Reserve buildings. We understand that the government has hired security agencies to protect federal buildings like Social Security, IRS, and they have forces out front protecting them. There's also been an order for potassium iodide for some type of nuclear attack. This could be from Fukushima, or it could be from a nuclear attack within the United States, from a lone wolf terrorist attack. And we understand that that they're letting in Al-Qaeda factions through the north, and they just realized that some of these people are bomb makers. We also have to remember that there was a memo for dry runs in the plane, and Boeing also reported that through cyber attacks, planes could be taken over very easily. And we can see how all this is starting to fit together, and everyone just needs to be prepared for what is coming. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.